Yeah, look, like I said, I thought it was a tight game. They're a top team, and I don't think they dominated us at any point. And probably towards the end when we had to open up a bit to try and, equalise. But up until the first goal, I thought we were well in the game. In some areas, we were more dominant. But ultimately, like I said, you want to win these games, you've got to take the big moments. You've got to be disciplined, and it's fair to say it's probably the area we've let ourselves down all year. Not capitalising on big moments and lacking some discipline in our football.
Is the title race over? How big was Ortega's save? Manchester City defeat Tottenham 2-0 in the move within one win of a fourth straight Premier League title. How did both teams set up? Tottenham set up in a 4-4-2 with Vicario in goal, Van de Ven, Ragusan, Christian Romeo, Pedro Porro, Benton Corher, Hoiberg, Madison, Sarr, Son, and Brennan Johnson. Normally Tottenham set up in a 4-3-3, but today they went with this 4-4-2, and this would, sometimes turn into 4-3-1-2, something like this, with Sarr in the middle and Madison over here, Hoiberg right behind him, and Bentancur making the runs over here behind Brennan Johnson. What Manchester City did was that they normally set up in a 4-3-3 as well, but for a couple of games, Pep has been setting up in a 4-2-3-1. So Ederson was in goal, Kyle Walker, Ruben Diaz, Akanji, and Guardiola the fullback. Got a double pivot of Rodri and Kovacic. And then you got Bernardo Silva on the wing. Kevin De Bruyne is a 10 right behind Haaland over here. And you got Phil Foden covering the left flank. And so what Spurs did was that they did press Man City high. It wasn't laid back sort of a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-1-2. They went all the way up here and tried to press them really high at the start of the game. And this looked something like a back three. What City did was that once the Spurs did press them high, City began to make the overloads on this side of the pitch. And once that would happen, either Bernardo Silva would make the runs over here, or if he was tucked in, Kyle Walker would make these runs here. And so, they would have this passing triangle over here between Guardiola, Kovacic, and Foden. And then, one of these guys would actually switch the ball over here. But the problem was that because Postecoglou was a bit cautious of the defensive side of the game, so what he basically was doing was that City with Kyle Walker or with Foden didn't really have the explosivity to break down the flanks. And so the match was basically just moving in second gear for most of the first half. So we also saw Spurs when the Spurs had this high line. We also saw De Bruyne, dropping deep and try to make these line breaking passes for Haaland to run into. But the Spurs, they were successful in intercepting these passes. And so on this side, eventually, we did see Guardiola tucking in and trying to make his moves down this side or either through the center over here. But that wasn't working either. Manchester City also initially did try to press the Spurs high up the pitch, but most of the time they also wanted to protect their back line. And so what they were basically doing was most of the match they were in a clear, 4-4-2 pragmatic sort of a press. With the Spurs players over here in between the lines, they didn't really want them to have that freedom. So they wanted to stop the central buildup of Tottenham. They were pretty successful in doing that. What was happening was that James Madison, who's normally the number 10 and he's somewhere around over here, he was all the way over here for the build-up. And once your main build-up player is right over here, you're having a really hard time getting the ball in the central areas to your guys over here. And Bentancur was the guy who was supposed to link up with Son and Brennan Johnson and sometimes make the runs himself. But that wasn't happening, although Bentancur did play good. So basically, Spurs went with the strikerless system, and that also had an impact on their game. Not really a positive impact, because what was going on was that once the central build-up for the Spurs wasn't happening, Son started dropping over here, and he started connecting with Madison. And then, Sar or one of the other or Bentancur would make these runs over here. And so when he'd get the pass, he'd make this through ball over here. And they had beat City's back line. There was nobody to pass to over here because they were playing a strikerless system, and Johnson was normally around this part of the pitch. So if they had a striker over here and he made that and he made that one touch pass over here, there would have been more chances at goal. And so in the second half, when Kulusevski came on, Spurs did become more threatening, and they did start to attack from this side of the game. And we'd see Son over here, right up on this side of the pitch. So they did end up making a total of 10 shots. By the time that happened, the game was over. Ederson, he went off injured because he had a collision with Christian Romero. Pep had to take him off, concern of a concussion, and Ederson didn't want to come off, but Pep said, "Hey man, you got to come off." And then so Stefan Ortega was subbed on, and this was the fourth time he was subbed on for him this season. There was a moment that could have denied City the title. So Son came running through on goal. We're here, there was a high press sort of a situation. They won the ball, and then he was one-on-one against Ortega. There was all the time he needed to pick his spot. It's a goal he scored before. Had he scored that goal, City would only have just a few minutes to save their season. The stadium held their breath. Even Guardiola fell to the ground in concern. All Son could do was, shoot straight at Ortega, and Ortega just took out his leg, saved that goal, and that's one of the reasons why they signed Ortega, because when we looked at all the highlights before they signed him, he was making all these saves, very regularly. So it was one of those Arjen Robben misses in 2010 World Cup final moments. No minutes later, Haaland just buried the goal. For City, De Bruyne was trying to link up with Haaland in the first half. It wasn't really working. He was this 10, and he could roam around everywhere. And so City's first goal happened when De Bruyne was way over here, and he made this pass to Haaland. He came running in, and there was this easy tap in, one touch, nothing difficult, and it was a pretty easy goal for City. So again, it was that De Bruyne Haaland connection that Pep had to get going for this game, because Kyle Walker or Guardiola or Foden, they weren't really gonna, they're good. They're gonna score a lot of goals. They've been taking City forward and everything, but they're not gonna score every single game, and that's why he had to get this combination of De Bruyne and Haaland going, and it worked. In the second half, he subbed on, as I told you before, there wasn't much threat on the flanks because there wasn't any explosivity. So then he brought on Doku, and that's where, in the second half, he did start getting this explosivity, this 1v1 threat. And what so for Tottenham over here, it was Pedro Porro. So Doku versus Pedro Porro 1v1, that was always going to be a challenging part for Pedro Porro. And that's actually what happened, that, Manchester City did get that penalty because of Doku. Haaland from the spot, buried in the top left corner, and that was that. Game over. City just have to win one more game against West Ham, and that's it. They're the champions for the fourth time straight.
And we have to win one more game to retain the title. Yeah, we define now here. We define, the, I would say, how is the team a team? Because Ortega saved actions, otherwise Arsenal is champion. Can be if we don't win against West Ham, but that is the reality in modern football. In the margins are so tight. I think it was so tight when we were better and have the chances when they have the ball with Vicario. They were better when we have the ball with Eddie, because both teams are making incredible high pressing. both teams with the ball, they know exactly what they have to do. And I think we had the chances with Phil, with the Kevin second half, with Josko, with some actions with Kyle arriving in the final third, and the pass with them was not productive. But after a goal, they changed the gear, so they were so aggressive, and all the game were incredible aggressive. So I saw for the minute one that the people suspect, no, I'm not going to win, we don't want to give the title for Arsenal. It was completely the opposite. So they were there because they were playing for the Champions League qualification, because Aston Villa has not an easy game in Crystal Palace next Sunday. And after they were in trouble. And after Eddie make the 2-3 savers and Jeremy make the rest, and we won the game.